Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 4. Today we're going to be doing my review and breakdown for episode 7. This was one of the best episodes I've seen in a long time. This is probably the best episode this season, and that's saying a lot because this season has been really strong. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. So this episode, A Regular Guy, I was looking forward to it, but I didn't know how good it was actually going to be. And I know you guys were freaking out just like I was freaking out during that massive moment, that massive reveal. We're going to talk about that in this video, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me throughout the entire video because we're going to be breaking down this episode chronologically, so we'll get to that when we get to that. And you guys are going to want to hear my thoughts on that because I have a lot of thoughts because I was freaking out, let's just say that. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the start of the episode. So we got Clark, who opens the episode with a monologue of how he started out as Superman in Metropolis. It's got the great Superman Lois score that we're used to. It's soothing, optimistic music which turns into a more epic track as Superman does the classic shirt rip, breaking into a bank and stopping a robbery at one point after saving that kid with the green car that we've seen. That's the iconic scene that we've seen many times throughout the years, and that's like one of my all-time favorite scenes in Superman Lois. But that opening flashback ends as he breaks into that bank, and you got that great shot. It pans in to his face, and that's when we cut back to present day. And in the present day, Clark is on a mission because he is going through a list of Smallville locals that he needs to convince that he is not Superman, and so he goes to Denise at the shop. We've been seeing Denise in quite a few episodes, and she is one of the major Smallville locals that has been kind of leading this idea in our heads and in Clark's head that they all know he is Superman, or they suspect he is Superman, and it just hasn't been completely proven yet. But in the background behind Denise, you see a report, and on the TV it shows a crash about to happen, and it's at that point that she looks back at him and she's waiting for him to make his move. And so it's at this point that Clark comes up with an excuse to go back to his car, but it turns out he walks out to suspenseful music as he turns the corner and does the shirt rip. I can't tell you how excited I am every time that happens. It's just so iconic, and that was a great shot. Like the way it moved around the corner with him, it was really, really good. And so Clark helps the plane down and flies back, which shocks Denise based on how fast it happens, because she literally saw him put it down, blow out the fire, and make sure everyone's okay, and then he literally flew straight back and he was there in an instant, and that was quite surprising for her. But let's talk about Kyle and Chrissy briefly because they return in this episode. This very well could be their final episode before the finale, so I do believe they will be back in episode 10. And I like the way that they handled their return and handled closing out things, because we all know Kyle was not a great person to Clark, especially at the start of the show, and he didn't treat him really nicely when he was younger. So I think they ended it off in a great way, and we're going to talk about that as we go along in this video. But they're trying to find a new home for their incoming baby. They find one in the episode, but it is out of their budget, and so they have to deal with that, and that's their main story this episode, which leads to some drama because to buy that house they're gonna have to find a lot of money that they don't have right now. And you have to realize, even if that doesn't look expensive for you based on where you live in the world, $300,000 in Smallville sounds like quite a lot because Smallville is a very small town. But in the meantime, we have Clark, who surprises Coach Gaines by pretending to hurt himself, because Coach Gaines is set on, yes, he is definitely Superman, just like Denise. And then he's also just being cheeky about it, and I like the way that he goes about it. I really like the actor actually, and it's always a great surprise and a great time when he's back, and so I think he did a great job in this episode. But after the scene, we flash back to Jimmy Olsen at the Daily Planet, and I have to say, I really like this version of Jimmy Olsen. I think he is a very good Jimmy Olsen. He kind of looks the part. Yes, he's not red-headed, but you know, that's okay. He's got the curly hair, he's got the kind of skinny build that you would normally associate with a normal Jimmy Olsen from the comics, And I think the way they play off each other is really good in this episode, and that being of course Jimmy and Clark, because it's such an iconic relationship or a friendship in the comics, and it's great that they started building it here. Obviously it's a shame that we're running out of episodes, and I don't know if he's going to be in more than just this episode, because it would have been really great to explore them more. But for now, let's talk about Jordan and Jonathan, because they get into nearly a fight with one of the football players who is pissed that they have powers, and so that kind of all links into the main story of Clark being Superman, and them along with him having to lie about him not having powers, or the boys not having powers. But luckily for Jordan and Jonathan, Kyle was across the street, and so he kind of breaks it up. And that leads to Kyle meeting Clark at the station, where he tells him about his money problems and also the fight, which basically alerts Clark to know that more people are suspecting that he is Superman. But over at the Gazette, Lois gives Chrissy a baby cot. I saw a lot of people online speculating that this could be Lois being pregnant again and she's just setting it up. Well, no, it kind of makes sense because this is Chrissy's episode, she's in it, so that makes sense. She is literally pregnant right now, so she gives the baby cot to her. But it's at this point that she finds out that she wants to buy this house, but she doesn't have enough money, so she would have to sell her shares in the Gazette. And this comes as a big shock to Lois, because they are partners, and this is something that she is deciding for herself. But now she is telling her, I would like to do this if I can sell the shares, but it turns out to be pretty hard because it's Lex that has previously wanted to buy a share, and investment in such a small town is quite rare, I would think. But we have another flashback that follows after this with Jimmy and Clark, who play softball together. It's a fun scene that sees Clark playing softball. He has a good time, he's smiling, Lois is there to support him. It's quite cute, there's quite a lot of different bits and pieces here, and it's just a nice heartwarming scene, and I like that about Superman and Lois. I like that it's not just all seriousness, they can have a bit of fun, and I really like what was happening, the dynamic between Jimmy and Clark, and also Lois being there. It's like a good triangle. And so meanwhile, back in the present day, we got Jordan, who backed Jonathan after, you remember, Sarah broke up with him for lying about his powers and everything that he did back then. And Candace was about to do the same thing. She was ready to break up with him because she was obviously being lied to. She didn't know what was going on, and so, you know, that really set her off. And Clark and Lois are mad about this, of course, because they are adamant, we gotta keep this secret, this is what I've done for all these years, and Lois has helped with that. But later on, in a couple scenes time, Lois actually talks to the boys and tells them what it means to their dad for him to actually keep this secret, because that's all he's known since he's been like 4 years old and he got powers for the first time. His parents were very harsh on him and made sure that he never used his powers, never went to any sports clubs because he could be found out, and it's just part of the way that they wanted him to grow up. They wanted him to have a normal life whilst also having powers on the side, and obviously he eventually became Superman, so that was his own choice though, and he used his powers, but he's always kept that separate. So I understand this is a huge deal for him if people find out, and if he is willing and ready to let the world know that he is Superman. And so in the meantime, we got Clark and the boys. They visit Timmy and his mum. His mum is someone that went to school with him, and so they cross them off the list. However, it's at that point where we get another flashback to Clark after missing many softball games. So Jimmy starts to put things together, and he thinks that Clark is Superman because every time he misses a softball match, Clark is out there, or Superman is out there, saving someone or preventing some dangerous thing from happening. And so he's added things up, and he is the Jimmy Olsen that we know, and you know, he figures it out. But Clark doesn't tell him the truth, he lies, and potentially loses Jimmy as a friend because he knows something is going on, but Clark isn't willing to say. And so it's emphasized in this episode that Clark doesn't have a lot of friendships because of this. Even though it's done good for his family, it hasn't really done so good for him personally. So him being able to be free with Lois was obviously a great thing, and then just the people that he trusts, but he can't really let too many people in because there's always the question of, are they going to tell anyone? could that be a big danger? And we see later in the episode, yes, it could potentially be a danger. And so let's talk about Clark and Lois, who meet Chrissy and Kyle at the diner, and they talk about the new house. And in fact, they offer to buy Chrissy out of the Gazette so they can afford the house, which is a great thing for them to do. They're such great friends, and it's a lovely moment between the four of them. And despite everything that Kyle did in the past, he appreciates Clark and Lois, and he gives a really great speech that I thought was one of Kyle's best lines, or best couple of lines in the series. And he talks about how they are the two kindest and most loyal people that he knows. But it's at this point where everything gets extremely juicy. Now, you guys have seen this episode, so it's time to freak out, guys, because Candace's dad shows up at the diner looking for Clark because he thinks that Clark is Superman, and he is making a scene in front of everyone, and he makes an even bigger scene when he pulls out a gun on Clark because he is willing to shoot him in order to prove and expose to the world, or expose to him, that he is in fact Superman. And so he shoots his gun and time slows down. Everything goes in slow motion. It looks amazing. It's one of the best scenes I've seen in a long time in the show, and Clark is able to move at such a fast pace as he turns around and looks at Lois whilst everything is going in slow motion, and that's because he's just moving normally, but he can move at a faster pace than everyone else, and so that's why it kind of looks like he's in flash time or something like that. And the music starts as he puts down his glasses. I was getting major chills as this was going on because I knew what was about to happen, and I could not believe my mind. I was literally freaking out, guys. I know you guys were as you were watching this. It was one of the best scenes that I've seen in such a long time in any TV show. And Clark takes his glasses off and rips his shirt in slow motion as that bullet comes close in the middle of the public. Obviously this is in a split second, so you don't know what's going to happen, but what a moment as he stands there unscathed in his full Superman suit after he does the shirt rip, and the whole of the diner sees Clark Kent is Superman. His secret is not a secret anymore. He says, "Sorry I lied to you all for so long." It's one of the coolest, most chilling moments of the show ever, and his secret is out there for Smallville. So seeing Clark take that leap was inspirational. It was epic. It was the moment that we've been waiting for, because we've been speculating. Everyone has been asking questions this season. Where is this going to go? Is he going to prove everyone wrong? Is he going to lie? Well, he figures out in this episode that his life could be actually a lot better if he tells the truth, and people know that he is Superman, and you see that later in the episode. So it's a huge, bold move that will change all their lives, and they make sure it's a family decision to do this because it's going to affect their lives. They're not going to be the same ever again. And so as they discuss everything at home, and they talk about if he's going to reveal his identity to the whole world, he apologizes to Jordan and Jonathan, which I thought was a sweet moment, to be honest, again. And it's an emotional moment because he apologizes that their lives aren't going to be the same. That's what he's been trying to give his kids, to experience Smallville in the same way that he grew up. But with this choice, it's going to change everything, and we've seen for the last couple of episodes, it's a lot easier to let people know, and your mental state will be better for it. And I think for Jonathan and Jordan, they were ready to tell people. But finally, Clark is ready to tell the whole world that he is Superman. So Lois calls a contact to interview Clark Kent at the Kent family home. And so this was another major point. So just before the interview, Lois references Crisis on Infinite Earths, which made me lose my mind once again, because we haven't had any reference to the Arrowverse in such a long time. Season 2 confirmed Superman Lois was not on Earth Prime and that they wanted to distance themselves from the Arrowverse, but Lois literally just said, "You stop worlds from merging." That's Crisis on Infinite Earths, guys. So are they bringing it back into the canon? That is the question. Let me know, what do you think about that line down in the comments below, because I totally freaked out. I was not expecting that in the slightest. And so the whole interview crew from the Daily Planet shows up at their house, and it's Jimmy Olsen's sister, Janet Olsen, who we saw earlier in the episode, who interviews Clark as they show the broadcast live on air to the whole world, where Clark talks about his experience and why he is now deciding to tell the world that he is Superman. And I've got to say, what an interview, what a scene. I watched this scene multiple times because I just couldn't get enough of it. Same goes to the diner scene. I think the diner scene is one of the all-time best Superman Lois moments, and this is great in another way because this is a moment that we've been building up towards, and this is going to have a big effect on the rest of the season because everyone's going to know that Clark is Superman now that he has revealed the truth to the whole world. And so everyone watches Clark as he tells his story from various angles. You see Coach Gaines, you see Denise and the other locals, and you see other people taking in the news, because this is going to be news that shocks the entire world to find out that Superman has been living in Smallville. He's a normal guy, or a regular guy as he references himself as, which is obviously the title of the episode. And it's emotional as well. I like this interview because he talks about his death, he's open, he's honest, and he talks about his choices as well as Superman and as a normal human being. And so as the interview finishes, the episode flashes back one more time to see Jimmy Olsen in the past and his last interaction with Clark for at least a decent period of time. But the Daily Planet team has won the softball match that they were participating in and talking about throughout this whole episode. And this is before Jimmy Olsen shows up in the flesh in the present day, and they hug it out. Clark apologizes and Jimmy instantly forgives him for everything because he's known all this time that he was Superman. I think on some level he understood that he had to keep this secret. But what an ending scene, because this is the start of something special, a bond that has gone on for generations in the comics and TV and film. Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen, what a way to end this amazing episode. I really do think this is one of the strongest episodes that Superman and Lois has ever done. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, because this is one I'm going to be going back to for sure and rewatching lots and lots, and I'm sure you guys will over time. So yeah, tell me, what do you think about all of this down in the comments below. Obviously we got a lot to talk about, but the main thing is, let's talk about that scene where he reveals he is Superman to everyone in the Smallville diner. What a scene. I was literally losing my mind. Like, I haven't lost my mind like that in a long time watching something, and that was just like a pure fanboy moment from me, and I'm sure you guys all had the same reaction. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It would really help this video get out there. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. But for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.